Russia spent years shifting valuable Black Sea assets away from Crimea as Ukrainian strikes made Sevastopol increasingly dangerous. Novorossiysk became one of the places Moscow relied on for greater depth and protection. Now that sanctuary is being tested too. Ukraine has reportedly struck the Novorossiysk area with drones and missiles, disrupting port activity and putting military infrastructure under renewed pressure. The real question is no longer whether Ukraine can reach this Black Sea hub. It is what repeated attacks could force Russia to change next. The latest attack on Novorossiysk matters because of where it happened and what the area supports. Current reporting says Ukrainian drones and missiles reached the Novorossiysk area, triggering Russian air defenses and disrupting activity around the port. Russian authorities reported damage and civilian casualties, while Ukrainian sources said military and port-related infrastructure had been targeted. The precise scale of military damage remains contested, and some claims have not been independently verified. That distinction is important. In an active war, first reports often mix confirmed damage, official claims, and battlefield interpretation. So the safest way to read this attack is to separate what is clear from what is still uncertain. What is clear is that Novorossiysk is not an ordinary coastal city. It is one of Russia's most important Black Sea hubs, combining naval facilities with major commercial and logistics activity. When air defenses activate and port operations are interrupted there, the effect is wider than a single explosion. The attack also fits a broader Ukrainian pattern. Kyiv has repeatedly tried to extend the effective battlefield deeper into areas Russia once treated as rear zones. Moscow has responded by dispersing assets, strengthening defenses, and moving valuable platforms away from more exposed locations. Novorossiysk became part of that adaptation. So this strike is best understood as another test of Russia's ability to protect a key rear hub while still keeping it useful. The next question is why this particular port became so important to Moscow in the first place. For years, Sevastopol was the symbolic and operational center of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. But repeated Ukrainian missile and drone attacks changed the risk around occupied Crimea. Ships were damaged, repair facilities and military infrastructure were struck, and Russia increasingly had to disperse parts of its fleet. Novorossiysk, on Russia's own Black Sea coast, became more important because it offered greater distance from Ukrainian-controlled territory and a different defensive environment. That does not mean Russia simply abandoned Crimea or transferred the entire fleet. Sevastopol still matters, but Novorossiysk became a more valuable fallback and operating location for ships and support activity. Its importance comes from what a naval base actually provides. Warships need places to refuel, reload, repair, shelter, and rotate crews. They also need secure approaches and predictable access. A base does not have to be destroyed to become less useful. Repeated alerts, dispersal orders, temporary restrictions, or the need to keep additional defenses nearby can all reduce operational freedom. For Russia, that creates a resource problem. Protecting Novorossiysk means defending ships, piers, support facilities, radar coverage, and the wider approaches to the port. Those systems have to work while the area also remains active as a major civilian and commercial hub. For Ukraine, the strategic value is therefore not limited to sinking a ship. Repeated pressure can force Russia to keep moving assets, strengthen defenses, and plan around a threat that now reaches farther along the Black Sea coast. That is why the method of attack matters. The next issue is how a mixed long-range strike can complicate the defense of a heavily protected target without requiring every weapon to get through. Reaching a target like Novorossiysk is difficult because Russia can layer several forms of defense around it. Major ports can be protected by radar, surface-to-air missiles, electronic warfare, patrols, point defense weapons, and naval security measures. No single layer is perfect, but together they are designed to detect, confuse, intercept, or destroy incoming threats before they reach critical infrastructure. This is where mixed attacks can create a harder defensive problem. One possible purpose of combining drones with missiles is to force defenders to manage different types of targets at the same time. Drones can arrive from multiple directions and at different altitudes. Some may be intercepted early. Others can force radar operators and air defense crews to track more contacts, fire more interceptors, or reposition attention. Missiles create a different challenge because they can be faster and leave defenders with less reaction time. At sea, unmanned surface vessels can add another axis of pressure because they approach low over the water and require a different response from an aerial target. But the exact sequence of the latest Novorossiysk attack is not fully established in public reporting. We should not assume that every drone acted as a decoy or that the strike followed a specific saturation plan unless stronger evidence confirms it. The more cautious conclusion is simpler. A mixed attack increases the number of problems a defender may have to solve at once. Even when most incoming weapons are stopped, Russia still pays a cost in radar activity, interceptor use, emergency procedures, and defensive deployments. Ukraine does not need every strike to produce dramatic destruction for that pressure to matter. And at Novorossiysk, the consequences do not stop with the naval base. The same area also carries major commercial, grain, and energy flows through the Black Sea. This is where the story becomes bigger than naval warfare. Novorossiysk is one of Russia's most important Black Sea commercial ports. It handles major cargo, grain, and energy flows, which means military alerts around the area can also affect civilian shipping and export operations. Recent reporting showed that attacks in the Novorossiysk area temporarily interrupted grain terminal activity. That does not mean Ukraine shut down the port, and it would be inaccurate to describe Russia's Black Sea trade as collapsing. The point is more limited, but still important. Disruption at a major hub can create economic and logistical friction even when the physical damage is contained. Russia therefore faces a difficult balancing act. It cannot treat Novorossiysk like an isolated military installation and simply close it indefinitely whenever a threat appears. Commercial vessels still need access. Cargo has to move. Export infrastructure has to keep operating. At the same time, military planners have to protect naval assets and critical facilities in the same wider area. That can mean temporary closures, tighter security procedures, additional patrols, more air defense coverage, and greater caution around ship movements. Each measure is manageable on its own. The strategic problem appears when those measures have to be repeated again and again. For Ukraine, that creates another form of pressure. A strike can have value not only through what it destroys, but also through what Russia has to spend, move, delay, or defend afterward. Still, this should not be exaggerated. Novorossiysk remains functional, and Russia retains significant defensive and naval capabilities. The real test is whether attacks become frequent enough to change behavior. That is what determines whether a tactical strike develops into a broader Black Sea problem. So has Ukraine changed the balance in the Black Sea? Not completely. Russia still has warships, aircraft, coastal defenses, electronic warfare, and the ability to adapt. It can disperse vessels, alter patrol patterns, strengthen protection around important facilities, and move valuable assets when intelligence suggests another attack may be coming. Ukraine also has limits. Long-range strike weapons are finite, heavily defended targets are difficult to penetrate, and even successful attacks do not always produce major military damage. But the strategic pressure is real if Ukraine can repeatedly reach locations Russia once considered relatively protected. For a naval force, confidence matters. Ships need reliable bases where they can refuel, reload, repair, and prepare for operations. If commanders have to factor in recurring drone alerts, missile threats, temporary port restrictions, and emergency dispersal, the base becomes more complicated to use even before a major vessel is lost. That is why the next indicators matter more than one dramatic headline. Watch for changes in where Russian ships are based. Watch for additional air defense deployments around the coast. Watch for repeated commercial interruptions, new barriers or patrol measures, and changes in the tempo of Russian naval operations. Those signals would show whether Novorossiysk is simply absorbing another round of attacks or whether the pressure is beginning to alter how Russia operates in the Black Sea. The bigger contest is now one of adaptation. Ukraine is trying to extend the reach and complexity of its deep strike campaign. Russia is trying to make each important hub harder to reach and less costly to defend. That contest will decide whether Novorossiysk remains a dependable rear base or becomes another location Moscow has to treat as permanently exposed. Do you think repeated Ukrainian strikes can force Russia to change how it operates in the Black Sea, or will Moscow adapt faster? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more evidence-based war analysis.